Shall we begin?
I gotta turn this down, Bob.
Holy Toledo! Wow, wasn't that fun?
I'm a kid, so I call it KFAN.
Hashtag Faith Radio.
Let's go. Let's go, everybody. Let's go. Good morning.
Yeah!
Got to be careful with Johnny Pecker. Here we go, Paul. As in Paul Allen, as in FM 100.3 KFAN, as in the 9 to noon radio show with mad producer by my side. Sabrina Ionescu, though, cold-blooded, Game 3, WNBA Finals. Yours in attendance, son in tow, Uncle Barry to the right, and Sabrina daggering favorite team in cold-blooded fashion. Anybody watching it last night? Anybody listen to it on FM 100.3 KFAM? Anybody in attendance last night? That was a heck of a basketball game. And Bridget Carlton with the Minnesota Lynx joins about 2 hours and 15 minutes from now for Yours Truly as a Fan. And I'll look forward to chatting with her about that game last night. And much more, including Ben Lieber joining about 10 o'clock to discuss the Northern Division collision Sunday at noon against the Motor City Kitties. But first, joining us is Chris Finch, coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Coach, good morning. I was at the Lynx WNBA Finals game last night, so sadly I missed your game. Just one question out of the gate. How did he look?
Some good, some bad. Typical preseason, if you will. With our first game with Julius in there, in the starting lineup, and first game he's played since February. So I thought he looked really good. I thought he helped us at times, unlock a lot of really nice shots for his teammates. Defensively, we struggled a little bit in transition. They shot the heck out of the ball from three, so we gotta get back on track with our defense. But mostly good. Not as exciting as the Lynx game. Unfortunately, they got beat in the end. That reminded me of the Lucas shot when I saw the highlight of it.
So you did catch that Ionescu highlight from like 25 or 26. Pretty cold-blooded.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, she got left, she got space, and it's a good shot for her.
When I welcomed you in, courtesy of Second Harvest Heartland and twoharvest.org, from a team standpoint, maybe the connection was a little dicey. That from a team standpoint, you guys could get beat by 15 in a preseason game, and I know you're going to be okay in the regular season if you stay healthy. Well, the question was, how did he look? Because it was the debut of Julius Randle, and he got to the line the most of anybody in the game. Wasn't that much. It was 4. But how did he do that? Like, how did he initiate whatever took place to get to the line 4 times?
Well, we know he's a very physical offensive player. It's one of the things we love about him. He's a hit-first guy on offense, creates a lot of chaos when he's in and around the basket. And I thought, we could have been even more physical at times trying to attack the rim. We settled a little bit too much, from the perimeter, but he looked great. He really did. I was excited. His passing was elite in particular. We just got to continue to keep getting him kind of comfortable here with the stuff that we're doing.
Right.
And he'll be fine,
Is there would you guess there's shell shock, or is there shock like when a trade like this happens, whether it's Carl or whether it's Julius and or Dante, and like they got to pick up real fast and have people help them with it and stuff, and like move their whole lives to a different state?
Yeah, there is for sure. these guys do an incredible job of being professional and, just kind of getting on with business at hand and settling in and learning their teammates and their new environment. And we just take for granted sometimes that the human side is not as impacted as we think. They settle in basketball wise probably before they settle in, personally.
Yeah.
Because it's just easy, natural, and they know they have to, and we're all in it together to try to make it work. One thing I've learned about watching these big trades go down, even and the small ones too, but the big ones, because when it's a big trade involving big names, and those guys probably aren't anticipating being traded, so there's an extra shock value to it sometimes. Sometimes guys will be in a point in their career where they're signing contracts where they're short term, the money's kind of lines up with what the team's trying to do going forward. So there's a strong possibility that they might be traded during the middle of the year. But oftentimes when these bigger guys get traded or these bigger trades go down, it takes them about a year, really. I remember when James Harden came to Houston. He had a breakout season, all-star season. He had 40 points in his first 2 games, and it looked like, hey, he's found his new home, which eventually he did. But talking to him throughout that year, you realize it took him a whole year to kind of just feel comfortable about everything. Rudy was the same here. It just took him a little while to kind of just feel comfortable, even though, on the floor he fit in pretty well right away.
And Chris, even though Julius didn't play at the Garden, what was that game against Cat like? I mean, I think he went for 16 and 16, and the parts that I watched were pretty good. It's preseason, man, but what was that whole atmosphere like?
Well, anytime you go to the Garden, it's a big event, no matter what. I mean, the game was a sellout. They were into every basket. There's the basketball fan base. They really know the game. They're there to support their team. So it didn't feel like a preseason game. It felt like a regular season game. It really did. Obviously, the emotion of Cat, the emotion of Dante. Julius didn't get a chance to play, but I know those guys were kind of, excited to be back in the Garden. And it was a good game. It was back and forth. We had, obviously, again, preseason. So our approach was to execute the plan of keeping guys minutes to a certain level, planning combinations, etc. But it was not your regular, normal, everyday preseason game.
So with Randall moving forward and the regular season quickly approaching, that was the preseason penultimate last night. In what ways can you use him that excite you?
Yeah, I mean, you could use him as a playmaking, power forward, which is kind of a weapon in the league these days. Have skill big like that. We can use him, down in the post. There's so much switching in the league these days too that you can use him to take advantage of switches. With his power and physicality, it's a lot harder for smaller guys to kind of stand him up. He creates a lot of double teams. He's a really good passer out of those double teams. I think you can use him as an ISO late game scorer too.
Chris Finch, coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves, 9 to noon. He joins weekly in very kind fashion, courtesy of Second Harvest Heartland and 2harvest.org. DiVincenzo, overall, how's he settling in, not only in the games, but behind the scenes, in the locker room, on the buses, stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like he's been here forever. Wow. It really has. I mean, in the games, it's been seamless. He's getting up a lot of shots, a lot of good ones too. He's got a quick trigger. He can pull it from deep. And his playmaking, putting the ball in his hands, getting to the paint, making the right play has been pretty elite as well. So we're excited about that. We've generated a lot of 3-pointers. So far this preseason, that was a goal of ours to get our 3-point volume up a bit. He's certainly helped that in both ways, just not only shooting, but also creating for others, in particular Anthony. They got a really quick and chemistry that's developed between them off the floor. All these guys have fit in well, and their teammates are enjoying them as people and as players.
With Dante, what's his perimeter defense like? Overall, the clips you've watched or playing games against him, like so just envision super close game, final 4 minutes, final 2 minutes, and you got to get stops and you got to win a game. Like, what's he like defensively in those moments?
Yeah, real good. Real good. He's physical. He's really competitive. He cares about defense. He likes to play it. He's got a knack for like knifing through things, blowing up the action. He's a steals guy. Can be a little bit of a gambler at times, but we don't mind that because I think he picks his spots pretty well. And what we really love about his defense is his ability to get back into the play and rebound in the air.
Chris, it seems like with you guys playing the Bulls last night. I'm pretty sure that you were with this guy, maybe in New Orleans. But the demise of Kobe White's career still has been greatly exaggerated. Correct? There's been no demise of his career. It's unbelievable. You know what I mean here. I mean, he went a year and change or whatever. You couldn't find him with a searchlight. He's playing 15 minutes a game. Now all of a sudden he's cold-blooded.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most underrated success stories, really, in the last 5 years. He's just gotten better and better and better. He looks a lot like the player he did when he came out of college, but only at the NBA level. I mean, he plays with incredible pace. His shot is automatic and from deep. I mean, the range that he's now be able to shoot from is kind of shocking to me a little bit, but he's been doing it for a couple of years, and he's really, really good at it. He's one of the best deep shooters in the league,
right?
Up there with the likes of, Steph and Luka and some of these guys who will pull up from anywhere. So he, makes him a threat as soon as he comes over half court. So, but yeah, I mean, it just keeps evolving, and I think he's going to have another step forward this year because, they traded DeRozan, and ball will be in his hands a little bit more. They've changed the style of play. They're playing extremely up tempo. There'll be a lot more opportunities for him to do what he already does best.
Well, these depth charts around the NBA. I mean, there's been so you mentioned DeRozan now with Sacramento, and Klay Thompson now with Dallas. It's Paul George now with Philadelphia. They're just you guys got Julius Randle. Cat goes to the Knicks. There's just been like a Vija, the cat who played for the Wizards. He's now out in Portland. I mean, there's just so much movement this offseason. Holy cow!
Yeah, that's. It's kind of like one of the unique things about the NBA. Way more trades than any other sport, and also primary guys get traded a lot in our game. I think it's one of the things that fans like. It gives it a little bit of a fantasy basketball feel to it at times because you always think it could happen, it might happen, and oftentimes it does happen. Sometimes the storyline about who's going to end up where. Maybe even be a little bit more interesting than the average the December Thursday night game.
Agreed.
So it's impressive when you think about it how these guys can move from place to place and still be able to do their thing and help another team win.
Yeah, I mean, like Chris Paul plays for Pop. I mean, granted, he's right at the end, but now the Chris Paul tour now ends up with Greg Popovich. And I don't know what you think of this. I mean, New Orleans doesn't have much of a bench. Valanciunas is gone, but DeJounte Murray running the point for them, and now they get McCollum pretty much strictly at the 2 or a 1.5, and Zion, and I know you were there and a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
But if they can stay healthy, that starting 5, they may be sneaky good.
Yeah, I think so. I thought last year they were really a feared team. You didn't really want them, as a matchup in the playoffs for sure. There's a lot of tough covers there, and have to do it night after night in a series. It gives a little bit of a headache, but I agree. I think there's a lot of teams in the West that, that are just kind of the complexion of each team is so different from night to night. Like. Really going to put a lot of emphasis and pressure on coaching staffs because you're going to have a hard time just rolling out the same game plan every night, the same defense. So, it's almost NFL-like now in the league because there's so many different skilled players at different positions that create these, problems for you, and your lineup might not match up very well with theirs, but you got to figure out how you're going to cover it. And I think we've, the game has taken some hits about being too homogeneous, like everybody plays the same way. Well, that might be the case in that we're all trying to get to these efficient shots, layups, free throws, threes. But the way teams are doing it right now is all a little bit different. Like I see these roster constructions, a lot of these, driven by these trades, and because there's so much skill in the league, so many different types of players can play together now. So it's a fascinating period in the league, if you ask me.
Well, I mean, quick twitch, since it's like we're doing NBA radio on Sirius XM, and we're analyzing the league with Chris Finch, head coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I'm Paul Allen. Just quick twitch, what'd you think of the Hartenstein move for OKC to put him with Chet?
Yeah, they needed size, for sure needed size. I think when they looked at themselves last year, what were they going to need as the playoffs came and through the regular season? More size. They can play them together because of the skill. Hartenstein's a really good passer. Can pull his defender away from the hoop. Chet had such an advantage playing the 5 over a lot of 5. At the 4, it'll be interesting to see how much of that advantage he's still able to maintain. He's going to be a great player in this league. So I'm sure he'll figure out a way. But as we learned with Cat, sometimes when you have these skilled shooting 5s and they move to the 4, they get guarded by, athletic guys who can kind of close them down a little quicker than they're used to. So, but it was a great move. They got him at a good point in his career. And I know their approach, knowing some people down there, was like, hey, let's just see what we need as we get through this. They feel like they're a little bit ahead of their timeline. So they thought last year was a bit of house money when it came to, not necessarily needing to make seismic moves during the season, but during the off season, they would have a good idea what they needed. And they added, defense, competitiveness, and, championship pedigree in Russo, and then they got some size and playmaking from Hartenstein.
Yeah, Carusso's a nasty defender, isn't he?
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, his analytics map out as some of the best defense in the league.
Wow, holy cow! All right, 2 more. Your kids, Dillingham and Shannon Jr. How are the kids getting along?
Yeah, they're getting along fine. They're going through the normal growth pains that all young players go through, right? They some good, some bad, head spinning. Like we said, it's a bit of a roller coaster with them, but as long as they stay on for the ride, we'll be good. Tonight we're going to see those guys play a lot. We play Denver tonight, and it'll be great. Hopefully they can find a rhythm.
Lastly, you told us to watch Minot, or just how much he had improved in certain areas when we were with you at training camp. Is his defense winning him minutes?
His defense has gotten better.
Okay.
But what's winning him minutes really is his shot making and his just overall activity. He just gives us a level of activity. Off the ball, so cutting and crashing, tip-ins and things like that just, that energetic players need to make. And that combination is really what's earned him. And just reducing the mistakes. Like, when you're a young player and you're coming into the game, it doesn't matter how talented you are, your number one job is don't hurt the team when you go out there.
Right.
And he's just reduced his mistakes, and he's not just not hurting us. He's really helping us, and his shot making has been high level.
Greatly appreciate the conversation, and we will call you next week. Okay, have fun tonight.
All right. Thanks a lot. Take care, Peter.
Yep, see you, bud. Chris Finch, coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves, courtesy of Second Harvest Heartland and twoharvest.org. Go to the website, twoharvest.org, and if you are so compelled, Chris is a board member for Second Harvest Heartland, a wonderful, wonderful program. I learned a lot more about when there was a dinner with some donors and Chris at a restaurant in Minneapolis a couple of weeks ago, and just what they did during the pandemic and how many people they fed. Second Harvest Heartland is philanthropic immortality. So go to the website and lend a helping hand if you are so inclined. It's 9:20. Vikes Bites are next. That's courtesy of TimberTech and TimberTech.com. That's what's on deck 9 to noon, which also includes Nacho Libre at 10 o'clock. And much more on the horizon, including Bridget Carlton from the Minnesota Lynx a couple of hours from now on that dramatic spine-tingling loss to the New York Liberty last evening. Nordo produces, and I'm Paul Allen. Nordo has the cash thing, and then when we return, Nordo will guide us through Vikes Bites with a very interesting but less than exciting injury report released by the Minnesota Vikings yesterday. But let's give away some money right now, and good morning.
Good morning, the fan and two men in a junk truck want to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand with the National Cash Contest, and all you have to do is go to KFAN.com, enter the keyword cash, and you might win $1,000. The keyword is cash at KFAN.com.
Football. Vikes Bites.
Here they come with them Vikes Bites.
Indeed, Vikes Bites brought to you by Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Grass-Fed Beef. You can go to thousandhillslifetimegraze.com. You can learn more about how to shop online, regenerative agriculture. They're a big sponsor of Gopher Athletics.
Who's Trace Jackson who?
Oh, Trace Jackson Davis?
Oh, for the Warriors?
The hyphen?
Yeah, we were running through so many players with analysis with Chris Finch. I just came up a bit short on asking about Amen Thompson with the Houston Rockets to help your baby fantasy team because we ran out of time.
I won't say who this member of the league is, but somebody basically wanted to give me my own entry fee back just to get Trace Jackson Davis this morning.
Yeah, you got a nice team.
It's coming together.
I like how you put that together. I like De'Aaron Fox with Anthony Edwards. That's going to be good.
It's going to be fun, and that's why I was hoping. Hey, Coach Finch, do you think how much does Anthony Edwards' scoring increase post Karl Anthony Towns?
Yeah, and my team Feng Shui in League Freak is Life goes Halliburton, Scotty Barnes, Adebayo, Jaren Jackson, Derek White, and then now we get Julius Randle, which gives me the right to ask 5 questions about Julius Randle utilization. What do you think of his passing? Think he's going to get to the line a lot? He shoots threes, right? Okay, cool. Let's move on.
Yeah, I saw you playing him at the 5, a little small ball last night. A handful of assists. Can we expect maybe some more passing and distribution this year from Julius?
Yep. And what'd you say about Alex Caruso? Wait, we're through 13 rounds. He's not taken. Coach, what'd you say again about Caruso?
I love laughing about that because
Chris is the best.
Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah, Chris is phenomenal.
And the laughter of that is, unfortunately, the change to that is how ominous, Vikes Bite style.
Yeah.
That I got to look at.
That injury report, though. Are you kidding me?
This injury report is nutty, and so I'm going to start with this. I'm going to play Kevin O'Connell speaking to the media yesterday, talking about Blake Cashman and this turf toe thing.
He's dealing with a little turf toe that kind of came up in the London game. I thought it was, a little bit just sore leaving London, went through the bye week, and, we've kind of established that that's what it is. He'll be really, kind of day to day, week to week as he deals with that. We really don't know yet, but don't think it will be a long-term injury, with IR or anything involved in that.
FIBA, Fairness in Bumps and Bruises Act. As Minnesota Vikings fans, and as those who chat a lot about the Vikings during these 9 segments, FIBA's Fairness in Bumps and Bruises Act. It's difficult to lament and get super frustrated about injury news like this when the team you're playing just experienced its best defensive player breaking his leg.
Yeah.
And Aiden Hutchinson's out for the year. So it's like a weird deal. I mean, we're not big social media like Vikings Twitter or chat room, like argue with fans of the other team and just go back and forth. We don't really do that too often. But from a Viking standpoint, like lamenting this I said it early in the week. I said this would be a bad game to not have Blake Cashman. And I know you have Ivan Pace, but against the way they do things with their running game, Cashman and Pace, well, that's why they have Cashman and Pace for games like this when the Lions bring in Dan Skipper, he's number 70, and they go unbalanced with a sixth offensive lineman, and they do it a lot. And they run and pass behind it. So I just feel bad for Blake. I mean, he was playing so well, but it's difficult to lament that because of FIBA, Fairness in Bumps and Bruises Act, because of Aiden Hutchinson for them, though.
Exactly. And I believe later on, if we get to some pressure points, you talk about that run defense potentially and what that whole thing looks like.
Yes.
The injury report includes Harrison Phillips not practicing with a shoulder.
Yeah, where'd that come from?
Aren't we supposed to get healthier with the bye? Isn't that kind of the conventional wisdom is that the injury report should be getting smaller?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, what did we do during the bye? Did we attend UFC events and actually decide to fight each other? Like somebody hurt a shoulder and somebody hurt a toe and somebody hurt a hip, and now all of a sudden, the injury report, though.
Sam Darnold, though, talking about the Lions defense.
They do a really good job of mixing, different coverages, but making it look like a lot of coverages at the same time.
Oh, goody.
And they like to, bring a lot of different pressures from different looks. So you just got to be ready for everything and be able to have an answer versus everything. And, I think they do a really good job. Obviously, they have really good scheme, but, the guys that they have on defense make it come to life. And, it's fun to watch on tape, but, we're excited for the challenge.
Do you remember my AOL password?
I always love that one.
Because I don't think I've typed it in for 13 years, and I can't get into my account. But anyway.
If we were doing...
Pressure points.
If we were doing that right now, in relation to that audio you heard from Sam Darnold, one of my pressure points would most certainly be this offensive line. And a lot of this conversation... Hours.
Yeah.
And it keeps going back to Aiden Hutchinson, PA. 7.5 sacks. The team has 15, 27 pressures. The team has 69. We're knockdowns, hurries. The list goes on.
Yes.
He's good for about 40 or 45% of their defense's action in the backfield.
Hold on. One player is good for 45%?
He's got half their sacks. He's got 40% of their pressures. The most knockdowns, the most hurries, the whole thing.
Damn.
And so this is
that stat head?
Pro Football Reference, whatever.
Yeah, the stat head bit.
Yeah, you can just dig in and you find the numbers and just get lost in the gleam and the shimmer and the shine of what Aiden Hutchinson does for that defense.
Right.
And so I don't want to leave talking about Aleem McNeil or Levi Onwuzurike. Yeah. Nobody's scheming up Josh Pascal until now, or James Houston. Well, he's not Justin or even Lamar.
Right.
And so how does that change? Are they doing more blitzing? This is a team that doesn't have to blitz a ton when you're getting that kind of action with Aiden Hutchinson.
I'm glad you said that because when I got home from the Lynx game last night, and you know me, $23 Taco Bell order.
Yeah, there's no shot you're going straight to bed.
And the Vikings, the sneaky all 22 bit in front of me to memorize numbers.
I get a text about Kelly Oubre at 12:15.
I know you love Oubre.
I love Oubre.
Right. Who are you, by the way? Because you went years in League Freak's life drafting the same guys because you were afraid to take other players, and you knew what you were getting in Sabonis and Oubre and players like that.
Don't forget about Chris Middleton.
Oh, Middleton, that's the one I needed. Who are you? You're not taking any of the guys you've ever had. I mean, what's happened? Okay, in 3-2. What were we talking about again?
Blitzing.
Oh, yes. When Hutchinson went down, they blitzed a lot. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything between Dan Campbell, a former Cowboy, and Mike McCarthy, or Ben Johnson and Mike Zimmer, or their defensive coordinator, their defensive coordinator, and all right, 3-2. But the Lions, they were pedal to the metal in that game, man, with blitzes and tricks. I mean, we talked about this. Oh, you weren't here Monday. They're throwing to Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker while up 30 points.
Yeah.
So that right there, I mean, that's street ball, and that's generally something you don't see. But they blitzed a lot, up like 25, 30 points, man. I mean, somebody had something out for the Dallas Cowboys in that game, and they made them pay.
Vikes Bites.
Oubre.
Brought to you by Thousand Hills. On the other side of the ball, how about this from Kevin O'Connell talking about the Vikings run defense?
A lot can be said about the scheme. You just never quite know what you're going to be running into from a standpoint of either edge pressure or pressure from the backside. But the way I look at it, though, stopping the run is, and very much about the simple things, setting edges, playing the cutback with cutback players, defeating blocks, and making tackles, and having as many purple hats doing that, snap in and snap out, is what really makes that go. And I think the players have really capitalized on being put in some good positions by flow, and then they're making a lot of plays.
So the focus being the run defense, the focus being running backs, Mr. Montgomery, who at one point in Chicago was all about broken tackles and such, but he wasn't running away from anybody in Chi-Town. And then Jahmyr Gibbs now into his second year. Terrific rookie campaign, fumbles in a big spot in a playoff game, but so far that tandem is looking so good. The focal point for him, it's a fundamentals thing, it sounds like, with Kevin O'Connell filling gaps. And maybe without Cashman, that conversation changes a bit. Let's get Grugier Hill up in those gaps and doing that thing. But a focal point for Sunday nonetheless.
But is that who Grugier Hill is?
I don't know.
And see, he, like the plan in London, from what I understand, because Pace Jr. was back, but Grugier Hill was picking off passes. He's leading the team in interceptions at that point while having played like 41 plays. And he's very instinctive with his pass coverage. But does that mean that you want to get him up there in the A gap and, mash with Zeitler and Glasgow and Ragnow and Dan Skipper? And Brock Wright, they're tight in. They use as the up back, kind of like an H back, like a fullback.
Yeah.
So that's what we'll find out, because the plan in London was like Ivan Pace Jr. I thought he was going to come out someplace, and Grugier Hill was going to come in passing situations. But Pace Jr. apparently played so well in that game against the Jets, they couldn't take him off the field. I mean, he really, really had a good game from what I've been told. All right, those are Vikes Bites. The Vikes Bites provided by whom?
Yeah, Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Grass-Fed Beef, PA.
Courtesy of TimberTech and TimberTech.com. What's on deck 9 to noon includes Russo Radio, a weekly component in the Love Covenant, chatting about the Minnesota Wild. Off a couple of days, well-deserved too, after having 4 games in 6 days, and they hook Everson's bunch on the road this weekend. Michael Russo is preeminent, and he joins 9 to noon next. Russo Radio is in the air. He's Michael Russo, covers the Minnesota Wild, writes about hockey for The Athletic and TheAthletic.com. And at Russo Hockey is where you can follow him on the X Machine. And Michael joins us now. Very cool win at St. Louis. Wonderful story you did on the goalie goal and the Fleury inclusion and just the way things were in the room. You really captured that nicely, Michael. And I bet you're glad you picked that trip, right? Because I know you don't go on every road trip, but that was a good one. That was a good game to cover because of the quasi improbability of how the Wild won. And then the first goalie goal in the history of the team. And good morning.
Yeah, it was really exciting. And I don't go on every trip, although I am on every trip until about the first week of January through that Raleigh trip. I think Raleigh and Washington, maybe. Mm-hmm. It was exciting. I mean, I've covered this league for 30 years now, and I've never covered a goalie goal in person. There's only been 15 different goalies to do it. And then when you got the color after the game of Marc-Andre Fleury telling him at the last time out at 34 seconds left that you're up by 2, if you get the puck opportunity, go for it. And he's like, yeah, maybe I will. It was pretty cool. And the inside of the locker room players are really excited for him. It's just not something you ever see every day. And when you saw that reaction on the ice, with Faber and Brodin just mobbing him behind the net with the other guys that were on the ice, and then him doing the flyby on the bench. And then what's really cool about the Wild is their social media team took fans into the locker room, and you got to see them drenching him in water. So, really, really exciting. Definitely changes sort of the complexion to the starts of the season. They have points in 4 straight games. They really need to bank points now because, even though every team plays 82 games, the Wild only have 5 games now in a 16-day stretch. And so just naturally, the standings are going to start to look a little lopsided if all of a sudden the Wild don't go, say, 5-0 on this upcoming stretch of the 7-game trip. So really nice win. But most importantly, to me, is Philip Gustafson just playing great in net. Super fun that he scored the goal. But most importantly, as we've said all along, there were 2 big things that for the Wild to get back into the playoffs needed to happen this year. One is better injury health. So far, they haven't had the greatest in that sense, but Gustafson looks incredible in net. Steals him a point in Winnipeg when his teammates in front of him were clearly gassed from the game before, and then was awesome the other night. And so has a save percentage of .948 right now, small sample size, and he just looks just so much in better shape. His practice habits are better, which is something John Hines has been harping on with him, and so far he just looks like he's at the beginning of what could be a really quality season for him.
Are Rossi and or Boldy nearing big time status? I mean, and when I say big time status, I mean right behind the stars. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. I think Boldy is going to be a star in this league. I think, Bill Guerin went on Spittin' Chicklets a couple of weeks ago and forecasted him to eventually having the abilities to be a 50-50 guy in this league. And, I think he get 40 and 40 this year if he's got good health. He seems to really play well under John Hines, as we saw last year, 28 goals in John Hines' 60 some odd games. And he was a point a game guy under John, and then went to the World Championship with the United States and led the tournament in scoring, and he's gotten off to a real quality start this year, although the Winnipeg game was as tough as I've ever seen him look. He just not only did he have tired legs, his mind, he was making some tired decisions on the ice. And Rossi, I think, has been really good, and I was really happy for him to get the goal the other night because he got rewarded for being a real quality center on that line with Kaprizov and Zuccarello to start the season. He's gotten a bunch of points already, and he just looks like somebody that could have a big year and put the Wild in a position and Bill Guerin into decision making on whether or not he's going to want to commit to him long term. He doesn't necessarily have to commit to him long term next year. He's not exactly going to be a UFA soon. You can still give him maybe another bridge deal to keep him in prove-it mode. But he's really playing really well and seems to be suited for that position between Kaprizov and Zuccarello. The one thing that always concerns me about that line is size. The Wild are amongst the smallest team in the NHL, and Rossi's obviously an undersized center. But the thing I love about Rossi is where he usually scores his goals are from high danger areas. He's got the courage to go to the dirty spots, whether it's against the wall to go dig out pucks or to the front of the net. He was in the upper 87 percentile last year in high danger shots on goal, which just tells you that he's willing to go to the areas that you need to score.
What you have a critical eye. What are you seeing in Kaprizov?
I think he's played really well. Again, tired in Winnipeg, like the rest of the team. But I thought the other night for a guy that played 28 minutes, according to ESPN, it was the 6th most ice time since the year 2000 for a forward without getting a shot on goal. But yet he had 2 incredible assists in that game. One on the power play where he took the Faber, neutral zone drop pass, which always gives me a heart attack when Faber does it because it just doesn't look natural to him. He saved the day there because it could have easily been a shorthanded breakaway the other way. But then Kaprizov weaves in and goes in between 2 defenders and slips the puck into Ryan Hartman. And then, pressures Nick Leddy on the one turnover that led to the Marco Rossi huge goal that turned into a 3-0 game. I thought opening night he was really good. I thought against Seattle he was really good. So I think that, this, even though he's got 1 goal in 4 games and pointed out the other night self-deprecatingly that he has the same number of goals as Philip Gustafsson. He leads the team in points, and this just feels like a very different start than he had last year when he really got off to a slow start and around early December only had, I think, 5 even strength points at that point in the season. So he's off to a quality start, and they're going to need him to stay healthy for them to get to where they want.
Any early returns or opinions, Michael, in terms whether it's Trennan, I'm going to mispronounce it, Lauko.
Yep.
In terms of what you've seen, again, very small sample size, totally get it, but from the idea of creating a physical presence, special teams, all of that, where's your head at with it?
Yeah, Lauko I really love. I thought he had a sensational training camp. Speed. He's got skill. He's shown it now. He led the team I believe he led the team in goals in the preseason, although I think Kaprizov and Boldy caught up to him in the games that they played. And Eriksson had a bunch as well. So, but for the role that he played and playing a lot of games with a bunch of the minor leaguers, he was outstanding, especially on the penalty kill and especially with Kuznetsov. They seem to have some shorthanded magic together. And the other night, Lauko scored an incredible goal, a much needed goal at a point where the Wild weren't getting a lot of shots, and it turned out to be the winner. Trennan hasn't shown me much. I'll be honest. He didn't show me much in training camp, and so far, he hasn't shown me up much at the beginning of the regular season. I thought his best game by far was the St. Louis game. He was very noticeable. He was faster, had some chances, was much more physical. As coaches and GMs always say in the NHL, it takes big guys a little longer in the regular season to get going, get their moves, their legs going. And I sure hope that's the case for him because he seems plodding to me and just hasn't gotten off to a great start. But I thought the other night was a good step in the right direction. He's going to have a lot of practice time coming up here. As I mentioned, with the Wild only have 5 games in a 16-day stretch and 5 games on a 12-day road trip coming up. But hopefully he's better, and that Foligno line with Ryan Hartman and Trennan could be an identity line similar to what we saw with the Greenway, Eriksson and Foligno line many years.
More NHL wide in the way that we're really digging into the first 4 games. The Avs are at a -12 and are 0-4 through 4. I remember a couple of years ago, Mr. Russo, we were talking about, remember when the Wild gave up in the first 3 games, they are outscored like 20-6 or something like that. It was weeping and gnashing of teeth. Ultimately, they find their way to the postseason. But if you're a Ball Arena and you're the voice of U.S. Bank Stadium, the Allen Roaches of the world, how worried are you through 4 about your Avs in this clunky start?
Yeah, Alan better hope that the Vikings go on a long run here because that might be the only thing keeping him happy this year. Because as everybody knows, Alan doubles as the Colorado Avalanche PA guy, and he's not going to have I don't think, a lot of opportunities to be excited this year. I'm telling you,
wow.
I predicted that Colorado would take a significant step back and wouldn't make the playoffs in our athletic predictions. I think I went on the bubble in our podcast with LaPanta and put them as a wild card team. I just look at them and they've got no depth, none. But I know that sounds stupid because a lot of times you think that, all right, if you have a healthy Rantanen, Makar, and McKinnon, you're going to make the playoffs. But they have nothing behind them other than Casey Middlestat. They've got guys on the team that I haven't heard of. Their goaltending is suspect. After Makar, their defense and Taves, their defense is suspect. And I just think that they're a big 3 injury away from being in, derail mode here. And they've got to get Nichushkin back. He's supposed to come back around mid-November. We don't know what's going to happen with Landeskog, but either way, he hasn't played in 2 years. So I don't think he'll ever be the Landeskog that we ever saw in those really tough Koivu versus Landeskog games that we saw for years with Colorado and Minnesota. And they've just got significant cap trouble. And that's one reason why they hired an assistant general manager that worked for Central Registry, which is the people that essentially run the NHL's cap and figure out all the ins and outs and magic spells to get out of cap issues. And they brought him in there to be AGM because they know this is going to be really, really tough, especially because the league gave them no break with Nichushkin out of the lineup. So we'll see. It's early. They looked awful again against Boston last night. They looked terrible against Columbus. They're getting terrible goaltending. And there's a lot of the 4 worst teams in the Western Conference last time I looked were Nashville, who was 0-3, Colorado, Vancouver hasn't won yet, and Edmonton. I mean, these are 4 teams that a lot of people have as cup contenders. And Edmonton finally had its first win the other night, but it had to be a comeback variety against Philadelphia. So it's taken some of the big 4 in the Western Conference, a real a little while to get going here. It's still early, but you can, as we saw with the Wild last year, I don't think you can make the playoffs in October, but you could certainly lose it. And you don't want to get too far behind too early, especially when you have so many better up and coming teams. Like, I don't think anybody expected Calgary to be 4-0. I think a lot of teams thought Vegas would take a step back, yet they're 3-1. And Utah, who's the one team that I've been really bullish on and has been pumping up a lot on the podcast, because I just think that they are going to be an awesome team for many, many years. They're off to a real exciting 3-1-1 start.
Lastly here, Michael, at Russo Hockey, of all the newbies, and Lauco Loco, you guys just talked about him, but of all the newbies, who are you seeing that's sticking out? Or who have you seen where you're like, damn, I've watched him before, but this is really working here?
Well, I'm going to go right off your who and go with Kuznetsov. I know that we got a 20-game test, or I forget what it was, 12-game or whatever it was, taste of him last year. But he has been really, really good. And he had a great training camp. He looks just a lot more comfortable. And so I put him in the newbie category because we didn't know what we were expecting from him. And now he's gotten a chance to play on the third line because of Eriksson's injury. And he looks really, really quality there. His speed is noticeable. I think he's going to help their penalty kill in a lot of ways this year. And I think he's got some sneaky skill. And I just think that he's shows a lot more confidence. He's got a lot of swagger to him, even off the ice. When I chat with him, you can tell he's real confident in his own abilities. So I really like what I'm seeing from Kuznetsov and Lauco right now.
Appreciate you, man. Enjoy the Columbus game, and we'll call you next week, okay?
Absolutely. And by the way, the Wild are practicing at 11 a.m. in St. Louis Park at the Recreation Center today. So if you're bored out there listening, you can come see a free practice.
Open to the public, right?
Yep, absolutely. I believe.
Yep.
Hopefully, I didn't just.
Well, no.
Hopefully, you didn't need to register for tickets, but I think it's
open to the public.
Yeah, Nordo dropped it on us yesterday at about this time, and good for the Wild too, because it's MEA week with school, so you're going to have a lot of kids, maybe even starting today, who don't have school, so they'll have something to do. And
it's beautiful out. So.
Right. An hour from now, St. Louis Park, where at the Rec Center?
Yep.
All right. Thank you, brother. See ya.
Yep.
Russo Radio into the second hour. The Vikings and Lions hook up this Sunday, noon for the Boom. Man on the sideline is the man with the plan, Ben Lieber at Nacho Lieber. He joins 9 to noon around the corner to talk about the Vikings and Dem Kitty.